Hey guys, we received a few messages this week from people inside Japan and outside Japan with varying degrees of concern about what the future might hold for foreigners in Japan because of some of the discussions that have been going on recently. So we talked about a little bit in previous videos, just there's been a bit more of a development, a few more developments of course. Lots of you guys would have seen the fact that Trump visited Japan recently, so that sort of put the spotlight on Japan in the media a little bit more, particularly talking about Japan's new lady Prime Minister, who's the first female Prime Minister that Japan has had, and some of her ideas on different things, including foreigners. So some of you might have noticed that that her and Trump got on very well, probably because they have lots of similar ideologies about all sorts of things, including foreigners. And she obviously, to become Japan's first female Prime Minister, she obviously has some very good people skills. And that was we could see that clearly in her dealings with Trump. So she gave him some caps that said, Japan is back. That's what it said. Japan is back. Sort of similar to some caps we've seen previously, isn't it? And she fed him some American beef too, apparently. So she's pretty clever. She's pretty clever, obviously, at getting people on side, which is what politicians do, isn't it? So that was all interesting. So as far as how it affects us, as far as how she affects us, she appointed a minister with a few things to take care of, including relationships with foreigners, which is the first time someone's been specifically tasked with that job. And she talks about foreigners and their social obligations. Now, we talked about that before. What they're referring to with the social obligations is our obligations to pay tax and to pay our health insurance and to pay our pension, which are all mandatory, right, for everybody in Japan. So anybody that works in Japan, paying all three of those is mandatory. So as we've talked about before, a lot of foreigners that come to Japan short-term or long-term fail to meet those obligations. They fail to pay their tax or to pay their social security or to their pension or to pay their health insurance. So it always has been the case, though, that if you didn't fulfill those obligations, that you might not have your visa renewed. So that's always been the case. I think the difference is that she's talking about enforcing it. The other thing that she's talking about as well is overstayers. So overstayers has always been a big problem in Japan. People come to Japan on a visa and then just don't go home, and they just continue to stay on. So apparently there's always been a huge problem with overstayers, people overstaying their visas, which is, of course is against the law. And the people, the overstayers, those offences are actually included in crime statistics, which we've talked about before. A lot of the alleged crime committed by foreigners in Japan includes a high percentage of crimes which are just people overstaying visas, right? Which are not crimes against any person, of course, just a crime against the law, the immigration law. So, so again, overstaying your visa. Well, if you're caught overstaying your visa, it seems only reasonable that you'd be deported. So it seems that, the other one was breaking laws, right? Other laws, other than the immigration laws. So, for those people who are concerned, I mean, the problem is that what's been happening is the mainstream media in Japan, and also just random attention-seeking clickbaiters, have really been pushing this thing about, the new government's going to deport foreigners, and sort of pushing that without really discussing the actual facts too much, which is very scary for foreigners in Japan. I mean, it makes you feel bad for a start, but it can sound very scary to foreigners that are in Japan or that wanting to come to Japan later. However, if you look at the actual facts, if you look at what she's actually said, and what her representatives have said, It's only those things that I've just talked about, which means if you're a foreigner in Japan and you pay your taxes, which you're obliged to do anyway, and you pay your health insurance and you pay your pension, which you're supposed to do. By the way, the pension, if you return to your own country later, you can usually get a refund of some or all of what you've paid into the pension. So, but either way, it's just one of your obligations to being here. So if you fulfill all those obligations and don't break the visa laws, don't overstay your visa. If your visa is going to expire, deal with it, renew it, or do whatever you need to do to have a current visa, and don't break the laws here. If you do all those things, you should be fairly safe. So that, and none of that is new. It's just, I think the difference is over the years a lot of that stuff has been neglected and not really pushed or enforced. And I think some of that stuff has annoyed Japanese people, and then politicians have sort of jumped on that and recognised that there is a genuine concern there that some Japanese people have that needs to be addressed, and then the media, attention-seeking people and random clickbaiters have just sort of exaggerated it all, as always, and made it into a huge problem that doesn't really seem to exist. So to those people that have been saying, what do you think, and should we be worried? I don't think so. I think as long as you keep your nose clean, which has always been the case. Some of the earliest videos that we made, however long ago that was, 15, 16 years ago, were for the how-to playlist that were basically saying this: if you come to Japan, don't break the law and behave yourself and do what you're supposed to do, and you'll have a good experience here. Well, it's sort of similar to that, isn't it, really? Come here and behave yourself, you should be okay. So far, I haven't heard anything else that she's said. As far as future immigration, they seem to be, she seems to think that it's better just to rather than let, because until now the policy's been that to let in more people and to loosen up the immigration laws, to let in more unskilled workers, because the thinking has been that Japan needs all sorts of workers, including unskilled workers, whereas her thinking seems to be that she seems to think that it's okay just to let the population continue to shrink, that you don't need to prop up the population with lots of unskilled foreigners, and that if by letting in lots of unskilled foreigners you're probably going to be creating more problems, which all sort of could be true. Who knows? Economists and other people more educated on these things than I would have comments to make about that, but it all sounds fairly reasonable. So the outcome of that could be that, in the past, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was more difficult for foreigners to get visas to come work in Japan and live in Japan. And it's possible that it might start going back in that direction again, where it might start getting harder. Over the last few years, we've seen it get the easiest it's ever been. They really lightened up on the visas, and it got to be the easiest it's ever been. And perhaps that's what has caused the resentment among some Japanese people is, they're sort of bouncing back from that. They've gone, hey, this is ridiculous. Too many foreigners coming in, and it's too easy to come in, and so perhaps it's a reaction to that. Now they're bouncing the other way and they want to make it difficult again. So it might make it more difficult again in the future for foreigners to come in. I remember 20 years ago, you really needed to prove that you're going to be of some benefit to Japan, that you're going to bring some skill that could not be provided by Japanese people. Basically, that's what they wanted. So, if you had some specialist skill or something that they needed here that couldn't be fulfilled by Japanese people, then they'd give you a visa. Most usually in the old days, if you just had no skills and nothing to bring to the table, usually it was very difficult to get a visa. So we might be heading back in that direction, which some would argue is fair enough. Either way, it's their country. Occasionally we get someone in the comment section that feels the need to get all excited and say, you shouldn't criticize Japan, you shouldn't complain, they can do what they want to do. Yeah, of course. Goes without saying. The reason I don't say that on every video is it's obvious, isn't it? It's obvious that in Japan, you know, it's owned by the Japanese people and they can decide what the rules are, and we just got to go along with whatever the rules are. That's fair enough. Never complained about that on any videos. In fact, none of our 5,000 odd videos are there any complaints. Merely observations, you know. And if it's something that doesn't go in our favour, obviously, we're going to say that. That's not very good for us, if it happens to be like that, or if it's something that's unpleasant, or something that's whatever. But there's no complaint videos on our channel, none. And the fact that, you know, Japan's owned by Japanese people and they decide what the rules are is a duh type situation, really. I mean, that goes without saying. No need to say it. No need to say it, but there's always someone that will feel they need to jump to Japan's defense. And oh yes, there's always the, if you don't like it, you should leave. That's always that's another duh comment, isn't it? You know? Yes, that's true. However, people who live anywhere in any country, whatever their status is, have a right to have comments, make comments about what they think about the place that they're living. Make observations, have opinions, and all that sort of fabulous stuff. Isn't it good? As long as we do it in a polite and respectful manner, it's not a problem, is it? So, again, to those people who were expressing their concern about their future in Japan, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you're thinking about applying for a visa, I'd do it soon. I'd do it soon because I'm not aware of any laws being changed yet, but they soon will be. She seems to be a pretty quick mover, getting caps made and buying American beef, and so she seems to be pretty quick at getting things done. So yeah, if you're thinking of applying for a visa, maybe do it soon rather than later. It might get more difficult later, but other than that, yeah, I wouldn't be worried. I wouldn't be worried as long as we behave ourselves, as always. As long as we behave ourselves, it's all good. Anyway, there's enough of that. More videos coming soon.